Did you say Alberta's leaving Canada?
I'm not saying that Alberta's leaving Canada, but I think that the conversation is really going to become a major conversation in Albertan homes over this next year. As these tariffs play out and the Canadian economy struggles, all those groups who sound kind of lukewarm about a pipeline that are going to go back to their whole morals and they're going to push back against that. Albertans they're going to sit around and they're going to go, ooh, that offer to become part of the US doesn't sound so bad, does it? Sounds like economically for us, we don't got to pay Quebec anymore. We don't got to worry about being landlocked because all we got to do is get this oil and gas south and then we can take it wherever it's got to go. We got a supportive president who's going to move on that. And it's often said that Alberta has more oil and gas than the entire US combined. So you can understand that it's this huge economic engine for not just Albertans, but for Canada. And you might not be aware of this, but we have these equalization payments that work their way throughout Canada where the provinces that are the have-nots take from the haves. So, for example, Quebec receives massive payments from provinces like Alberta as part of these equalization payments. Now, what's going to end up happening here, this is like the most obvious debate we can all see coming, is that Alberta wants to get those pipelines from Alberta to New Brunswick that have to run through Ontario and Quebec. Now, Ontario's not really a fan of them either, to be clear. But Quebec was really vocal against the pipelines. And now the debate's going to be, well, if you guys don't want to support the pipelines, we don't want to give you equalization payments. And this is going to get ugly. This is going to get nasty. This could be the undoing of Canada as we know it. And by the way, Canada's not that old of a country. I mean, Newfoundland has only been a province of Canada since 1949. The Canada as we know it isn't even really 100 years old. So if the US comes around and they offer Alberta more than what Canada can offer Alberta, I think that there's going to be an appetite for that. And I think that I think that that's dangerous. And there's another point that I want to make. There's another very important point that I want to make. There's been recent polls showing that Mark Carney and the Liberals have really caught up to the Conservatives with Pierre Poilievre. And if Ontarians vote in Mark Carney over Pierre Poilievre, I promise you that these whispers of secession in Alberta turn into movements, big ones. Canada is not going to be the country as we know it if Mark Carney and the Liberals win. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I personally think that Mark Carney, he's never won anything in politics before. He's never been in debate. And he's going to start saying stuff that an unseasoned politician would say that's going to get him in a lot of trouble. I can't help but think of this guy who ran for the Liberals years ago. Now, I know I'm talking about Canadian politics, so you're probably bored out of your mind. But there was a Liberal leader named, I believe it was Michael Ignatieff, who ran for the Liberals years ago. And I remember seeing him in an interview and somebody asked him, what's your favorite baseball team? This is a goddamn layup when you're running for Prime Minister of Canada. Chris, do you know how many Major League Baseball teams are in Canada?
I only know one.
There is only one. So if you're running for Prime Minister of Canada, what should your answer be?
Jace.
The Blue Jays. What did Ignatieff answer? The Boston Red Sox, because he used to be a professor at Harvard. It's a layup. It's an absolute layup. Mark Carney's going to get caught in a whole bunch of these quotes. Today, there's a clip of him going around on Twitter where he's talking about how he's prepared to use the emergency powers, basically any power that he can when he's prime minister, to get the country into a better economic position.
And something that my government is going to do is to use all of the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers of the federal government, to accelerate the major projects that we need in order to build this economy and take on the Americans.
This is a guy who's heavily involved with Brookfield, which is one of the largest real estate companies in Canada. Very, very much involved with the World Economic Forum. This should have Canadians freaked out at the level of crony capitalism that Mark Carney would bring in. And he needs to be very careful with these comments because social media is going to have a field day. So I don't think Mark Carney is going to win. I think people are tired of the Liberals. The pendulum swings one way or the other, and the Conservatives' time is here. Whether it'll be a majority or minority, that's always going to be the question. But in the event that I'm wrong and Mark Carney actually is okay at debate and doesn't constantly put his foot in his mouth, and Ontarians vote for him, They are playing a dangerous game. And I don't think that most of them realize that. But Albertans are going to strongly start to have this conversation about leaving Canada, probably for the United States of America, because they don't want their oil landlocked. And Canada, as we know it, may no longer exist. Again, I think it's a moot point because I don't think we're going to go there. But if we do, I don't think Ontarians know what they're up to and what they're playing with. I say this as an Ontarian who mostly talks to Ontarians, but I have a lot of friends in Alberta. So I have a pretty good sense of the temperature of the two places. I just think that that's a very, very dangerous hand for Ontario to deal to Alberta.